I'm meteorologist Chris Mulcahy. Your WCNC weather team is watching these line of showers and thunderstorms, and we even had a tornado warning, the first spawned in Chester County, that expired at 12:30, but we have the right environment. Now, all eyes right now are on Lancaster County and Union County. That's where we have the best potential for all of this. We're going to go through all the parameters. Brad Panovich is right here checking what's happening behind the scenes. Brittany Van Voorhees is also in the Chevy Storm Tracker. Let's talk about what's happening right now. So you can see we do have a severe thunderstorm warning right down to the south. So this is only affecting the southern parts of Lancaster County for the time being, but that's actually not really where most of our attention is. I think you could have some very strong winds associated with this, but I'm going to bring up the velocity. It's always usually these little kinks that happen right within the radar. That's where things are the most threatening. And look at some of these winds that are starting to flourish from this. So some of the bright greens to blues that you're seeing is representing wind gusts up to about 60 miles per hour. And then that's right against the opposite red. So that shows that we do have rotation, kinks, and it's starting to tighten up a little bit. So further down to the south, right where that tornado warning is, still some very gusty winds, at least over 60 miles per hour. That's obviously why we had the severe thunderstorm warning that was issued. But this does have a history of rotating, and I want to go back in time a little bit. I'm going to bring up the Columbia velocity here. I want to show you what spawned the tornado warning before. So it's oftentimes when you have the discoloration, the difference of colors. Here's the reason why. It's a pretty broad rotation, but still south of Chester. So the time of this was before 12 o'clock. You can see that it started to spread out, and then once you get to the early afternoon, that is when it started to spread out a little bit. But if you look really closely along these lines, it is not a straight line. Instead, there's a lot of these different kinks, and I'll trace it for you. That's where you have the biggest issue. It's whenever you have these little squiggles along the line that a spin-up tornado is possible. So that is the deal. It's a spin-up tornado environment that usually they only last about 1 to 2 minutes, but that's all it takes. It could be an EF1 to an EF2 that could range in strength of 65 miles per hour to well over 100 and 110. This environment, I think, is a little bit weaker, but we have some very strong winds up above. That's the driving force of all of this. Also, we have some decently tall clouds with this, decent amount of rainfall. Check out some of our rain rates that we're anticipating along this line. So it's a very heavy line of showers and thunderstorms now going all the way from Monroe down to Lancaster. If I were to bring up how much rain we're seeing per hour, it's about 1 to 2 inches per hour. So that's pretty blinding just in general. Only seeing a severe thunderstorm warning right now in the southern parts of Lancaster County, but I want to give you a look at the roads right now with Brittany Van Voorhees, what this line indeed actually looks like if you're driving through Lancaster County and Union County. What's it like on the roads, my friend?
That heavy turn left here. Boom, there you go. We do have some pockets still of light to moderate rain, a few spots. You can see some ponding on the roads. I've been impressed with how many people honestly have been using roads this morning. We only saw one car skip off 485 into a ditch there just before you got to 77, that interchange. It was around mile marker 67. But you're going to go in and out of it. You're going to go through those areas of light to moderate rain. You're going to go through a few lulls. But as we get closer to that area of eastern Monroe County as well as Lancaster County, you're going to notice, of course, the wind really picking up too. Now, my photographer is a great driver. However, we know in these gusty winds, you know, the steering wheel can get a little rough at times, especially being near 18-wheelers, semi-trucks, and things of that nature on the highway. So, of course, today we stay weather aware, and of course we use some caution on the roads. I will say that I've noticed that it looks like the most widespread overall rain was what we saw earlier this morning in terms of rain by itself. It is, of course, like you've mentioned, the potential to see a few strong to severe thunderstorms by the second half of the day. I haven't seen significant flooding, that yes, ponding on the roads, a little bit of minor street flooding, but that's pretty much expected, you know, after a day where we see that light to moderate rain in the morning. I do think the flood permit threat does remain highest in the mountains if we do get some of those pockets of heavier rain, especially by the latter half of the day. And that rain, saturating the ground can allow for those trees to tumble over. We had that one earlier on Providence Road when you add in the additional factor of the wind. But thankful that we had just that one warning earlier. Right now, no indications that there was a tornado on the ground. Of course, we'll keep an eye on that. But otherwise, I think it's just a day where people have to stay weather aware and remember to know where that safe place is. Interior room, away from windows, have that helmet, things of that nature, as we do, of course, have that tornado watch in effect for a few counties until 8 a.m. this afternoon.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot, Brittany. Yeah, so bringing up those tornado watches, they're right behind me. So this goes until 8 o'clock. Ignore that right there. So Union County, that's our next event right now. We're looking at Union County right now because it has a very strong signature that's coming along with this. So you can see the main line. That's where that really heavy rain is, just east of Monroe to Wingate. Let me bring this up. Look at that. You can see the difference between the reds and the greens. So it's a strong push of the winds in general. So that's why I think that we had that severe thunderstorm warning in the southern parts of Lancaster County. But it's all these little kinks along the line that are interesting to see. So you can see that bowing out right here around Monroe, and then it comes back, and then it jets out around Tradesville. It's right in those little notches that you have a chance for a spin-up tornado. Now, typically when that happens, it's only in the ground for 1 to 2 minutes. Most oftentimes when we have a tornado warning, might have already happened, but we have the right environment that this isn't just going to last in Union County. It's also going to continue to push its way further off towards the east. And as I mentioned, we have the whole entire team here. We have Brad over here. And Brad, I'll have you step in. We've been watching what's been happening from really the Lancaster County to Union County line for better part of a half hour now.
Yeah, and what's interesting, you're exactly right, Chris. These little, what we call squiggly squall line here, those kinks in there, that's like, it's better than QLCS, I guess. But the winds and the environment east of here actually are more favorable for tornadoes. We just had a lightning strike there. And while the lightning isn't a big danger, the fact that we got lightning means we've got a developing updraft. So these are actually getting stronger as they push east. And Chris, this was the area we were kind of concerned about today, these areas south and east of Charlotte, because, look at the time, it's 1 o'clock. We've had some time to warm up the atmosphere. Even though there's clouds and showers here, the temperatures are able to get up into the mid-70s. So the instability, that cape, that thunderstorm fuel you talked about in your weather IQ, that is building right now here in the eastern part of our viewing area, and that's why those storms are going to be something we watch. I think you're exactly right. By the time the warning comes out, Chris, probably the thing's already touched down and moved on. So I'm kind of shocked we don't have at least a severe thunderstorm warning for that line, because what we're seeing is the tornado tags, and that one you see right there that Chris is bringing up, that is actually a radar-indicated severe thunderstorm, but it has one of those tornado tags, Chris, and that means a tornado is possible at any moment within that storm. And we always say severe thunderstorm warnings can and do produce tornadoes with little or no warning. So unlike our typical severe thunderstorm warning, which would be primarily about wind and hail, these today could produce tornadoes, and we want you to take these just as serious as possible tornado warnings.
Yeah, so I would say if you live from where this tornado warning is, so we're talking about Lancaster County up through Monroe. What's interesting in the backside is, yes, that there's a little bit more rain, but it's just this main line. Yeah. So we're not going to give the absolute all clear just because there's a few cells developing off towards the west, but this is the main line pushing east. So anyone that pretty much lives east of Monroe, I would say at this point, you need to be weather aware, because anything could really happen at that point, but it's really especially the concentration from about Monroe, Tradesville, all the way down to where we have that first initial warning. And this is moving pretty fast, too. Yeah. About 45. I wouldn't be even surprised if we're seeing up to 50 miles per hour. Just because if you look outside how fast the clouds are moving, that's what's driving all of this and also blasting in some extra instability as well.
Yeah, so the areas, this is 74 here. You've got Highway 9, which runs from Lancaster over into Chesterfield County. They both kind of parallel. If I lived between those two highways, I would be on guard for potential warnings here. So you're talking about Marshville, Polkville, 218, which kind of was the old bypass around Monroe. Now we've got the new one heading over into Anson County, Wadesboro area, Ansonville. Those are the areas that are next up. And because Chris mentioned how fast these storms are moving, you're going to want to be ready way ahead of time, because I don't know what the speed was at the last sweep there, but it looked like it was 35, 40 miles per hour.
Yeah, I would say 40, 45 is kind of where we're trending.
They're flying.
So oftentimes, once they start to pick up momentum, they'll continue to build. So that's the good news, is they're not going to be around for that long, but it doesn't take that much. And we also saw, and I love going back in time to really see what has happened, and you can see that well-defined line. And I'm going to try to step out of the way here. I'll just do this. Yeah, you can see that. that right behind me. Once you have these well-defined squiggles, I know it sounds ridiculous as a technical term, but that's where it is. It's like right in there that they can happen so quickly. And we saw that earlier, and I can bring this up from the last couple of hours. I got this from the Columbia office that you can clearly see what was happening for the first tornado warning for the environment. So watch, we're going to go back about 2 hours. You're going to see this here in Chester County. There it is. There it is, just southeast of Chester. So where did this come from? You notice that initially, here I'll step over on this side, that you had, there's that squiggle. But then right in there, you have a change where that green, the green going towards the radar, and then you have the yellows and the reds that are going away. So then as that started to spread, here, I have to look inside of him.
Wow.
You can see that's the reason why we saw that tornado warning previously. So this is the same type of environment, but it's really quickly. It's just going to disappear right behind me. It didn't last that long. So that's why we're watching this area especially pretty closely, because at any point, it's, oh, look at that. You can really see with the positive lightning strike, little area. Let's see if we can bring up Charlotte, Brad, to see if it looks a little more pressing, the CLT.
There's a lot of kinks there. It sounds weird. I know we say the squiggly squall line, but the other term is an acronym we love, QLCS, which is a much more complicated thing. But if you think about it, you ever driven on a curve, and you know how you turn this way, but your body wants to go this way? Well, the wind's doing the same thing here. It wants to curve back in. So as this air pushes out, it forces the inflow around, and that could cause a quick spin up. They're very quick. It's just like a current in a river or creek that goes around a boulder, and you get a quick whirlpool behind it. That happens pretty frequently in these little kinks. Sometimes on the apex of the bow you can get a rotation, but oftentimes these what we call bookend vortices on either side of the bow. And we've got 2 of those, Chris. So literally anywhere in here we could see this. I was watching the same kind of setup last night in Jackson, Mississippi, and they had a tornado touchdown in downtown Jackson. But at one point there was 3 separate circulations within that squiggly squall line that were referred to moving through the area. So these are serious storms, and even if they don't produce tornadoes, the wind speeds we're seeing on radar have been between 60 and 75 miles per hour. So talking about 75-mile-an-hour straight-line winds definitely could cause some issues. So as Chris mentioned, this is the main line we're watching. I'm glad you said not to give the all clear out west, because the front is still back in the mountains. And if the sun comes out behind this, we might see not a big line, but maybe a couple isolated cells develop back through the foothills, and that could be more of a problem as we go into the evening hours. I think there's a reason that watches out. Thank you.
Getting a few of these. Yeah, and Brittany is actually on the roads, and we have some light rain scattered about. And here's what Brad was talking about. I'm going to bring up a better look. This is just the general satellite. Yeah. But you saw that there was a little line that tried to go secondary again. And can we bring some of these graphics full so we can fully... Okay, we're good to go. Yeah, it's going to be that line that you're seeing just off towards the west. It died out because all the energy is driving right here. And I'm going to go back over the last 3 hours. Notice how much more impressive it got. Yep. Once it started to get into that peak instability, it really was I-77 that things really started to get turned on. And this is an impressive line. Now you're starting to see the thunder and lightning to go with it, and the kinks galore. Yeah. I know it's so weird, these are the terms we keep bringing up, but that's where you see the QLCSs.
So, Chris, we got a question about Albemarle. Can you go up to Albemarle? Because this line is heading in that general direction, but what we've seen in the northern part of this line, it hasn't been as intense to the south. But there is a little bit of a northerly component to this line. It's not moving due east, it's moving kind of northeast, correct?
Yeah, northeast, and you kind of pinned it. Right now, radar's estimating 35. The tornado warning that we had was 40 and then went up to 45 miles per hour. So let's call it the general speed that this storm system is moving at 35 to 45 miles per hour.
Because individual elements of those storms, like tornadoes in themselves, can move quicker than the parent storm. They can rotate around what we call the mesocyclone. So that's not unheard of, but we're going to do a quick storm track on that as we talk about Albemarle, because I will tell you, I was on campus and I drove through that band. Even without wind, it's blinding rain. It is really tough to go through there. So, Chris, we've got all these towns kind of in the path of this squall line. And so we've got Marshville, Pageland, Peachland, Polkton, Wadesboro, Ruby, Chesterfield, Morven, that's out in Rockingham area near north of Rockingham, southwest of Rockingham, north of Rockingham. So in Richmond County, those are some of the next towns if it makes it out there. And that's going to come up here at 2 o'clock, which is about an hour from now, but kind of shows you how fast it is. It's basically moving at highway speeds. on 74.
Yeah, and here's a Futurecast. Futurecast honestly has been really confused at what to do with this. All morning it's gone back and forth. Before it had a really strong secondary line, but this is showing that at least, and this is the most recent, this is the high resolution rapid refresh, or the HRRR, as you always see. There's the secondary storms that we were mentioning, but I really want to focus on that main thing. And I think the timing of this is a little off, but you can see as it moves off towards the east that how much that storm system really hits the brighter reds and the magentas, showing the strength in the system as we've already seen over the last hour.
Okay, so we got some questions about Salisbury and Fort Lawn. Fort Lawn, this is past you, but Salisbury, it's kind of on the edge. You're just to the northwest of it, so the worst of it looks like it's going to miss you to the southeast. So you should be good in Salisbury. And Fort Lawn, the worst is past you. That line that came through that area earlier down in Chester County was the one that had the tornado warning. And, you know, Chris, that signature you showed was really impressive. I'm actually surprised that the Weather Service has been really hesitant on issuing warnings, because a lot of these rotations have been in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. We haven't had what we call surface-based storms. But when you see that signature pop up, you got to warn on that, because that's a pretty tight signature, pretty close to the ground.
And I'll go back to that. And what's really cool is we have a bunch of different offices that roll through this. But then when you look at that and you're like, oh, no, that is something you absolutely want to warn with.
Right there.
And it's not often you can see it this clear. Sometimes it's too far away from the radar, but to actually see the front line of how it's moving through, and it was very brief. And what's interesting is the warning actually came when it was at this point. It was right about noon, and that wasn't even the maximum. So that shows how quickly it's been a tornado. And I did a population tracker on this. When the tornado warning hit in northeastern Chester County, it was about roughly a population of 5,000 people. It's never good to have a tornado or a tornado warning, but it's better when it's in the more rural areas. Sometimes they have a better chance of getting going. But now this general line is now heading into more populated area. And here, I'll continue. You can see right there.
Why don't you pull up the CC here? This is and see if you can buy the Columbia correlation code. I'm just curious to see if there was any indication of debris.
Where is it right down here?
Switch it to Columbia there.
Columbia, there with us.
Click there.
Boom.
All right, now go back to that same time frame if you can, because I'm curious to see if there was any hint of debris on that.
Let's see.
Probably taking a sec to load.
Yeah, it's taking a sec. Oh, there it is. All right, so
that was right around. Ooh.
Very close.
You
All
know
right.
what?
So it's right about there.
It's hard to tell. There was one little frame there. It looked like maybe something. So what we're looking at here for folks watching this, we're looking, this is basically our debris tracker. When we look at the dual pole data, we're looking at something called correlation coefficient. The bright oranges and maroons, those are raindrops. Everything's the same size. We're looking for lowering or blues or yellows that briefly shot. Look, go back one frame. What's one more?
Oh, there it is.
Wonder what that was.
Yeah, and that was pretty close to where the tornado
was right
warning
about
was.
the warning time. That's near Richburg, east of Chester there, near 77.
Yeah, and that's where everything was really active, because it's about 5 miles southeast of Chester County. So right now, what you're actually doing is this is pretty much tornado investigations to see if something came down, and the National Weather Service is actively doing this. But also, when you see a storm that does this in a less favorable environment, that's what really piques our attention. And that's also why we're keeping an eye to the sky, because we have tornado watches. Now, this hasn't been updated, so ignore the time in the upper right. But this is all until 8 o'clock that this is going to be expiring. However, the way that this line is, the reason why I think it's a little bit later into the evening is just in case of that secondary line. Because you haven't had actually the cold front move through. There's usually a prefrontal boundary, and then there is a actual boundary along the cold front. So there's still a chance for the 1-2 punch. But of course, right now we're seeing what's happening from Monroe down to Tradesville. And let's see if we can see any better rotation with the most recent batch. Let's go to Columbia again.
I'm just was scouring through some of my DMs from people out there. When that line came through, a lot of people reported a very quick gust of wind, like a brief burst, and some trees, some branches knocked down. And even as it moved through the Charlotte area, I got a report out of the Dallas area, which is where our transmitter is, of a tree fell on, it looks like a home or either some kind of structure. It looks like it fell on their house and crushed their chicken coop as well.
Well, sorry to hear that.
Right around, this was right before 1 p.m. in the town of Dallas. So that was as that same line was moving through. And what you're looking at now, this is up at 1450, so 1,450 feet above the ground. So we're pretty high up, Chris. look how fast those. This is not a time lapse, folks.
Yes. This is usually sped up, and we love our new camera because, for one, we're actually seeing the main push of what the atmosphere is doing. So this is an idea about how fast those storms are moving through. And now, you doesn't really show the magnitude. That means that this storm system could be at the beginning of your street and the end, really within a matter of seconds, less than a minute, about how fast this is moving.
So you're seeing a lot of fracus clouds or scud clouds here at the bottom. And because this is below the level of the camera, so you're knowing the level of what we call the level of condensation level is probably closer to about 1,000 feet, I would guess. Today.
Which is ideal for tornadoes, by the way, because you want it to be lower to the ground.
Exactly. The lower that LCL is, the more favorable it is for tornadoes. And those clouds, just looking at them up at this level, Chris, I bet the wind's going 50, 60 miles per hour. And so it wouldn't take much to mix that down to the surface.
And we love this tool. So now we're just showing off some of our favorites. But one of my favorites is the low-level jet. Yep. So the low-level jet, we were predicting that this is going to be a windy day because we did have that down tree that was off of Providence Road earlier today. Now, we can't say, hey, it was absolutely wind damage, but the winds at that level at the top of the tree were going pretty ferociously. Wow. And whenever you see, we've been showing this graphic a lot more recently because it really gives an indication of, one, where the winds are coming from. This also can lead to more shear because you have strong winds higher up about a mile, and then the winds are just slightly a different direction, allows that twist here at the surface because it's a little bit more southerly here at the surface, a little bit more southwesterly here, so that's why we have that twist the atmosphere and still a chance here. But these values right here are showing at least 60, 70, topping off at the top.
Definitely severe. And last night, Chris, when this line was coming through Alabama, it was really interesting to see the squall line was here, but there was all these damage reports ahead of the squall line, which were coming from the low-level jet. It was non-thunderstorm wind damage, which is probably what we saw today here in Charlotte because it was ahead of the line. So those winds in and of themselves can cause damage, and we certainly saw that this morning.
And going back to the thunderstorms in general, we really haven't had, besides what's happened in Chester County, Lancaster County, anything really associated with thunderstorm activity. Most of this has been just general rain. So back to what we're talking about, look at how quick this line is. Yeah. If you're watching from Northwest Charlotte right now, curiosity, I'm going to bring up the Lake Norman camera to show you because you're not, again, in the all clear. You can see those darker clouds still.
But it looks like a little bit of a breaks going on there. So
it's brighter for sure than what we were seeing down to the south. And since we have all these different cameras, it's always best also for you. Tell us what you're seeing. So in the chats here, what's happening. And this is kind of a lull in between everything. We're not seeing, besides that severe thunderstorm warning in the southern part. And we also have Brittany on the line as well. So as we're just looking at all of our different weather tools, we want to show you what's actually happening instead of just going to the camera. So Brittany, where are you for one? What's going on? And what have you really been seeing over this last journey of yours?
Well, journey, it has been quite one. We have essentially been kind of chasing that line that you guys were just talking about, impacting parts of Monroe County and Lancaster County. I think what's interesting is that you mentioned how quick the storms are moving. Both Chris and Brad, you both did. I mean, we have been trying to kind of catch up to them, but they're moving so rapidly that it's been hard to do so. Thankfully, I haven't seen on our journey a lot of downed trees, things of that nature, but you can tell that the winds are gusty, and we have some ponding on the roads as well. I'm going to show you actually a look at our you know those pockets of water when there's rain that's kind of consistent all day that just pile up on the edges and you drive through them and it kind of like shakes the car and makes you feel a little bit stressed for a second and then you're good to go. But you've seen a lot of those, and you can see if you look at both sides of the roadways too, there is a little bit of water accumulation, so we are likely going to see at least some minor flooding, bit of ponding on the roadways, but other than that, it hasn't really been too bad at this point. Other than the fact that we've seen, of course, the breezy conditions as we're looking toward those storms there in eastern Monroe County and down toward Lancaster County, really hasn't been too bad here right behind it. I'm seeing a little bit of lightning, strikes being popping up there, especially over toward Anson County, but overall it does look like the wind threat is continuing to push further east. At times, you'll drive in and out of heavier rain, and then 1 second later it'll feel like it's light to moderate. So we're kind of just on that back end, I think, of this first main area that we've seen so far today. But of course, I do think it's important that everyone stay weather aware, and like you've been mentioning a few times, Chris, not focusing so much on the fact that this rain has already moved through, but the fact that we have the potential for a few more storms as we go throughout the day. Good news, at least for these folks, is that because you see how cloudy it is, there is a chance that maybe some of these areas have stabilized. So how much heating will we see later on today? How much will that pop up the opportunity for some more storms? But at least for now, they've been relatively tame, so nothing severe at this point. We're in Monroe, actually, heading east there in Union County. So we're really right behind that main line of showers and thunderstorms that's still producing areas of heavy rain over toward places like Polkton, Marshville, over toward Wadesboro, Pageland, down toward Jefferson, that is South Carolina, not Jefferson, North Carolina, and down toward Heath Springs and Kershaw. That's really continuing to rapidly push toward the east. But at least for you guys up in Charlotte, it's looking much better. It looks like radar's kind of having you start to clear out there, and how much daytime heating we have, I think, will largely depend on how strong the storms could get later on today.
Appreciate you. We're now focusing in on a new area. So Chris Campbell, our Mighty Fine director, let's take this full. This is where we're watching. It's west of Ansonville, and I want to show you what we've seen over the last few minutes. You can see that leading edge, Hamilton Crossroads, but really over the last few minutes, first off, you picked up a positive lightning strike. So that's one good indication that, one, this line was strengthening, but you see a good indication. Look at that. A good indication.
2 lightning strikes now.
2 lightning strikes. This is growing. This would be the best chance, at least, you're seeing rotation within the storm. So I haven't said this name before. Is that Kickers?
Looks like it.
Looks like
Sugartown there, Ansonville.
Right along 742. And the track of this still, in general, as you can see, is moving off towards the northeast. So this will just be west of Ansonville. So if you watch from here, this is not an active tornado warning, but this is what the National Weather Service looks out for when they issue one, and that is where we're seeing the best chance. When you see the blue, let's see if I can get a rough estimation. And by the way, you have to take these wind estimations with a grain of salt because they are much further away. So we see a 20
jump to 56.
To a 56. Ooh. So that would be, at least if this was a tornado, an EF0 type criteria. But it's just incredible about how quickly this happened. And this is an example of a spin-up tornado criteria.
Yeah, that's 87 miles per hour of gate-to-gate shear right there. So
yes.
And that's, like you mentioned, that's pretty far from the radar, too. So it's probably a little more intense than that. Cottonwood is a town up there in southern Stanley County that was hit by a tornado about 4 or 5 years ago. That right there, so it pops up. That's kind of in that same area. There's Norwood, and then central part of Stanley County. So that's right near the Stanley-Anson County line, Chris. And that area is tough to warn for because it's kind of in between radar locations. So, yeah, Norwood, that area. I think I was down in Cottonwood. I think it was an EF1 that touched down out there.
Yeah, and this is a prime zone as well, so it's right along the line. This is what we're watching. Now, Brad, you were saying they're also watching something down here in Lancaster County.
Yeah, and that one right there, west of Jefferson. So you probably have to look at the Columbia radar because it's getting towards the edge there. So Kershaw's right there, which is not in Kershaw County. It's actually in Lancaster County. So right there, looks like more like Kershaw area, Mount Pisgah area.
Yeah, and what Brad is seeing, by the way, and see, you're learning as well. See, it's right in there, so that's the line, but then as soon as it starts to bend, that is where you could potentially have maybe our next spin up. And then you were seeing a slight indication from Charlotte. These are, again, we can go different ones. That's a little bit too far away because that wouldn't really be helpful.
So we had a question about Lancaster. There's probably in the city, you're okay. This is the southeast corner, more towards Kershaw County. So there's the new severe thunderstorm warning. And that's really where we're tracking. That's moving from Kershaw, Lancaster into Chesterfield counties, and that's until 2:15. And that does have a tornado tag on it as well, Chris. So that basically means that's a severe thunderstorm warning that can and may produce a tornado with little or no warning. So they put what's called a tornado tag on there just to say, hey, this is a severe thunderstorm warning right now, but we're monitoring it for a possible tornado warning. There it is. Tornado warning just issued. Let's see, that one should be to the north, right?
There it is, just where we were watching.
So that's the one we were concerned about, and we're probably going to jump on TV as well with this, so we will keep the stream going. So if you see us kind of cut out and go back on, it's because we're going to be jumping back and forth with a TV work as well. But that is a new tornado warning, Chris, and that's that Ansonville storm. That's exactly where we were watching because that was the one we were concerned about.
Yeah, and here's the reason why. So if you're just joining us, we now have an active tornado warning, and this is only going to be affecting part of our viewing area. Technically, it starts to go out when it's just east of Stanley County, but this is still going to affect the southeastern part of Stanley County and also the northern part of Anson County until 1:45. Currently, the speed of this, generally these have been pushing about 40 miles per hour, and then this one as well. This one actually says moving northeast at 70 miles per hour. So that is incredible. That also shows if it's moving that fast, the potential of the winds. And this is one of the more impressive signatures that we've seen all day. Where were we? Let's go to Charlotte. Yeah. You can see that how spread out this is, and that little yellow dot right here. And Cottonville. If you have any friends in Cottonville, that's where it directly is headed, Brad.
Yeah, so Norwood, Cottonville. I mean, Chris, we were watching this very I mean, yeah, that's a really tight circulation. We've seen the evolution of this going from a broad circulation to a tight circulation.
Here it is. So this is what's happened, and the reason why we have that tornado warning actively. Thank you so much for joining us online. If you've been watching us online, we have been tracking this for the better part of the last 30 to 45 minutes. Chief Meteorologist Brad Fanovich here, Meteorologist Chris Mulcahy. Here in the northern part of Anson County, we have a very fast-moving potential tornado for this tornado warning that was just issued minutes ago.
Yeah, and so Chris, we're not on TV yet. We're still streaming. That will not change. So most of us in the middle of the day probably watching online anyways over the streams. But this is racing 75 miles per hour because every sweep we see it kind of move a little further north. So Norwood, Cottonville area. Now this should stay. It looks like it's going to stay just south of Albemarle. It's going to be close, though. It's probably going to be just south. So Albemarle is on the top of your screen there. So this is going to stay south of Albemarle, Mount Gilead, Troy. Out towards Baden Lake area. That's the area where this is going. So
we're about to go on air, so I'll let you start.
Don't need no lift, drive her own car. She don't need no lift.
All right, we're breaking into program right now. This is Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. I'm joined by Meteorologist Chris Mulcahy. We've got a new tornado warning which is affecting parts of the Sandhills. This does include northern Anson County and southern parts of Stanley County, Chris. And this is till 1:45, but the speed of this thing is pretty amazing.
It's astronomical.
How fast? 75?
70, 75 miles per hour is what it's moving. And all the other paces of the severe thunderstorm warnings and the tornado warnings that we've seen previously were moving at about 40 miles per hour. So very quick moving system. So that means it's going to be in and out, dropping down pretty quickly. And we're going to bring up our tool showing exactly the rotation that we're looking at. Look at that, Brad. So it was very
Guys, punch
impressive.
that up at the key wall. Chris, if you can guide that, I'll jump over here and kind of show what we're talking about. Chris and I were watching this really carefully earlier. Thanks, Chris. We had this strong gust of wind coming out of here. It wrapped up, and then we saw those cloud-to-ground lightning strikes. Right there, that's the county line. So this is New Salem area, not too far. There's Ansonville, Polkton to the south, Cottonwood, and up there towards Norwood, Mount Pleasant area. So right there is the circulation. So I'll tell you what, Chris, it's probably already in Stanley County. So Anson County, even though you're in the warning, this is primarily Stanley County now. And based on the speed, Chris, I would totally agree that's moving probably 75 because it is absolutely racing to the northeast. This will miss Albemarle. So if you're in Albemarle, you're getting heavy rain, wind, likely some small hail, not out of the question, but the worst of this to the southeast. So there you go. There's the tornado warning. That is up until 1:45 this afternoon for Anson, Montgomery, and Stanley County, but it's really in Stanley County, and Chris is guiding the radar here. You see around Norwood. That is the area. If you're in Norwood, seek the lowest level of your home, an interior room. If you're in a mobile home and you have time, please try to get to a sturdier structure, the convenience store, the Dollar General, the Walmart, whatever you can get to. If you can't, even in your mobile home or manufactured home, getting in the middle of the house and covering your head is the best thing you can do. Put as many walls between you and the outside. And if you have a helmet, hard hat, whether it's a bike helmet, skateboard helmet, whatever it is, protect your head because we want to protect you from flying debris. So thanks for that storm track there. So there's the time of arrival. Don't read too much into the specific times there. Give or take around 5 or 10 minutes because the speeds we've been seeing that these have been moving, you're getting very little time to prepare. That's why all really afternoon, Chris, we've been monitoring that line and saying treat all these lines of storms as if they could produce a tornado with little or no warning. But this tornado warning, again, is up until 1:45. And that's actually a pretty short-lived tornado warning.
Yes.
And that shows you how fast it's moving and how quick we think these are going up and down.
And look at how big of a distance. I'm going to bring up our measuring tool. This shows how fast it is moving. This is a very long tornado warning. Usually this would be up to about a half hour that we're talking about this. It's 40 miles wide. That means that in the next 30 minutes, it is going to travel 40 miles. So it's going to be in and out of Stanley County. It's already in Stanley County. So Norwood, you are the one that we're especially watching right now for the time being. And this is a quick moving system, but also this is a rain wrap system. So it'll be very tough to see if this is indeed a tornado on the ground. Now, I will say, as we were looking at some indications, the rotation is not as tight as it once was right when the warning was hit. You can see that it was especially tight right when it got into the northern part of Anson County. Still quite prevalent moving into Norwood. It's starting to spread out a little bit, but still a very serious rotating, quick moving storm, likely rain wrapped rotation. And you're seeing a lot more of these positive signals. That is showing a positive lightning strike, and that's indicative of a strengthening thunderstorm. So since we're seeing a lot more of those, Norwood again is right over you. So if you're watching from Norwood, this is the time to be in your safe place. You should already be there.
Yeah, and what Chris is mentioning about the lightning strikes, why are those even important in this case? Well, lightning is not going to form unless you have ice crystals in the top of the cloud. You get ice by shoving that updraft way up into the sky. So that means this storm is getting taller and bigger. Right there, Chris, I mean, that is just textbook. We were actually on our live stream talking about that was a developing tornado, and then the warning came out. But I think you're right, Chris. I think it touched down here in northwestern Anson County right there and probably made it across the county line and lifted. But just like we saw it spin up quickly and it spin down, it could happen again. It could just as easily spin right back up. So folks in Norwood Beach area, north of Mount Gilead, this is going to be west of you, and then moving into parts of Montgomery County and Randolph counties, that is the area where it's going to be heading right now. Anson County, you're not in the clear from weather, but you're in the clear from the rotation. It's actually already moved up here into Stanley County, and you can see this is the length of the warning polygon, we call it. It's only up now for another, less than 13 minutes or so, 12 minutes. That means it's going to move that fast in a short period of time, basically 65, 70 miles per hour. So absolutely flying, Chris. I have not seen any reports of damage yet in this area. We have to switch between a couple sources because it's really in kind of no man's land for radar. But the terminal Doppler radar, which is based up at Mountain Island Lake, did have the best view of this for a while. And Chris, it does look like there's a little bit of the rear flank downdrafts coming in pretty strong now.
Yes.
On the back side of this. So even though the rotation looks like it's weakened, I'm very wary when I see the rear flank downdraft, which is around 43 miles per hour. That pushes out. That could start spinning up another tornado. And look at the wind speeds just based on that. So Chris, this might be cycling. It might be going through another transition here. We might see it redevelop. In fact, it might be another circulation forming right in that area.
And not good news for the next county over, Montgomery, but for right now, Stanley County, again, Albemarle, you're probably having some gusty winds. It's a gusty wind environment in general. Wind gusts up to about 45 miles per hour. But yeah, this is definitely cycling. So what Brad means by cycling is it's starting to rejuvenate. It's starting to get a little bit tighter. And when it gets tighter, that's when a chance that the tornado could retouch back down. So Norwood, you're seeing very strong winds with this regardless.
Chris, let's throw another storm track on that because now that it's cycling back up, I am a little concerned that we probably are seeing a tornado now redevelop. So folks that are ahead of this, we'll do another storm track on this. Again, it seems crazy, but it's moving at 70 miles per hour. So there's the updated storm track. Perfect. Thank you, Chris. These towns, if you see any of these towns, if you're watching us on air, online, on social, you're in those towns, seek shelter. But if you know somebody that's in any of those towns listed on your screen, you've got people you go to church with, family, friends, coworkers, text them, tell them there is a possible tornado on the ground and it's moving quickly. They need to seek shelter. I find often in these cases, people will seek shelter when other people tell them about the warning, more so than even us. So if we can amplify that message, please send them a DM, a text message, or a call, anybody in the path of this storm, because this has had a history of producing rotation down in Chester County, Lancaster County, even briefly it looked like in Union County. Then it perked back up in Anson County and is now solidly in Stanley County. So that's the path of that storm. And you could see, boy, it started way down here. And it really is clear that you could see that push and then that spin up right there. It's basically right over Norwood. If you're in Norwood, you should already be in your shelter location. We can tell you if you live west of here, it's not completely clear, but you can get out of your shelter location. That storm is already past you right there. It did cycle. And Chris, right there, it does look like it did form another one.
Yeah.
Right there.
Notice how it was so broad.
Wow. Yeah, that actually looks more impressive than before because it's actually occluding a little bit. It's actually wrapping back into the storm. So right there, west of Norwood, pushing northeast. Just move the map a little bit up to the north there. I can see, go down a little bit further, Chris.
Okay, let's see.
Just west of Norwood.
West of Norwood.
Keep going back to the west a little bit more. Right in this area here. This is the area just west of Norwood. There's definitely something going on right in there.
So crossing Highway 52, you can see some intense rotation.
Let's query that pixel and that pixel down at the bottom there. I'm curious. Go one more down. See what kind of speed you got in that orange area.
Then we got a 40, 29, 38.
So we're getting some rotation in there. Yeah, and there's some really, so that's just west of Highway 52, excuse me, west of Norwood. So this is basically on top of Norwood, Chris.
Yeah, and again, we just saw that before it was broadened out. So at this point, there was no tornado, likely came back, but then very solid around the Norwood area. So that's South Stanley School Road is where we're seeing that, the far eastern side. Here's the most recent update. You can see a little bit further to the north. Now, River Haven, I know that we're starting to leave our viewing area, but we're still going to be staying with this tornado warning just because of how active it is. And we can see right there, it's getting a little bit better, Brad.
Yeah.
It's not as impressive. And this is also a sign of what a spin-up tornado is. They usually only last on the ground for about 1-2 minutes, and you can see it right there. Goes right there.
Yeah, it could be doing some cycling there. So this is heading basically through downtown Norwood now. South Stanley High School is just on the west side. Where Chris was just highlighting that road. So that's South Stanley High School. So, Lake Tillery is that lake just to the east. That's why you see Norwood Beach. That area is very close to there. You're basically moving just to the west of the Piney Point Golf Club, and then up towards the next would be like the Norwood Campground area, boathouse on Lake Tillery. Those are the areas where this is tracking. So just based on the way it's been kind of pulsing up and down, I definitely would stay in your shelter location until this storm moves through. It is going to be flying by, so you don't have to stay in that shelter location long. There's some strong winds on the backside of that as well. I mean, even in Norwood, where it looks like we're still getting winds close to 60.
Yeah, you can see it here, and then these are just estimations. At least 50. I'm sure that some of these are at least 60 miles per hour because the atmosphere in general is pumping out winds up to 40 miles per hour on its own. And speaking of the roads and rain and everything, we actually have Brittany Van Voorhees that is in Union County, I believe. Let's see what the conditions are behind the system, as looks like that circulation is starting to leave Stanley County.
Yeah, Chris, right now we are in eastern Union County, heading really right on the backside there of that warning. We're just to the east here of Marshville, heading toward places like Polkton and up toward Ansonville. Now, I'll tell you, if you look really closely at the storm ahead of us, you can kind of see what looks like kind of the outer edge there of a shelf cloud, the leading edge there of the thunderstorm as it continues to push there toward the east and northeast. Now, what I have noticed on the roadways is the folks definitely taking a little bit of extra time. We have had a lot of rain in this area over the past few hours, so we have encountered many areas with ponding on the roadways, and of course some of that minor street flooding too, especially in those low-lying areas, retention ponds, things of that nature. You'll likely notice that. Now, I do think it is important to note that if you are driving in an area such as this, where we have the storm really the worst right in front of you, you want to make sure to keep that extra distance there, because you don't want things like the rear-facing downdraft, things of that nature, to kind of push those gusty winds out toward you. So you want to remember, of course, to keep that distance. If you are in a severe thunderstorm warning, something like that, you want that you are supposed to treat those like a tornado warning. If you are in your car and you are able to get out the path of the storm, the National Weather Service does recommend that. If the threat is imminent there, they want you to stay in the car, pull off to the side, try to get out as low to the ground as you can go, or at least stay in your vehicle if you can't get out because of flying debris, and cover your head and make sure that stays protected. That's usually one of the biggest threats here when we have the potential for severe storms or a tornado while you're driving in and out. But for the most part, it does look like the storm is rapidly moving away from our area. Been keeping a close eye side there. Haven't seen any reports there of extra damage associated with this storm. We are on that backside of it, keeping that safe distance, but we are right behind it for you, and we'll continue to keep you updated with any updates. But for now, I would say I'm going to repeat something that I feel like Brad says a lot during severe weather. Stay weather aware. Remember to have that WCNC app. We will alert you and, of course, keep you updated with any changes. For now, live here in the Chevy Storm Tracker, I'm meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees.
All right, Brittany, before you go, where were you again? You're in northern Anson County, correct?
We are in northeast Union County near Marshville, heading toward Polkton, toward Ansonville.
Okay, I was just going to tell you, just to your east, where you are, there's another circulation between you and Wadesboro that we're keeping a close eye on. So just be prepared and be on guard, because you're on the back side of that circulation. That's heading up towards Ansonville, but it does look like a secondary circulation there. There is a new severe thunderstorm warning with that cell that has a tornado tag. So I just wanted to be clear that we knew where Brittany was, because I didn't want her driving into the backside of that system, because it's coming up from Lancaster County into Anson County, but it has the same type of circulation, Chris, that we saw earlier.
Yeah, so again, we can't give the all clear because we have to still see if another line is going to form behind this. That's why we have a tornado watch for this area until later on. But at least for the time being, it's really the focus on parts of Chesterfield County, but I would say Anson County is the bullseye right now, because you're now starting to see things rapidly improve in Stanley County. Things are at least going to be clear around Charlotte for quite some time, but let's bring up that rotation again. So Anson County, this tornado warning, by the way, is going to expire here in 3 minutes. We also have a picture that was from Mount Gilead, I believe.
Yeah.
Checking that out. So this right here, tornado warning in Stanley County. You can just see some very heavy rain. Viewers, we always appreciate you for Mount Gilead is where we had that picture from.
Yeah, and probably you're going to have a tough time seeing anything showing up on these pictures because the rotation is going to be rain wrapped. So let's go back to that circulation on the terminal.
Let's go over.
So see right there, I'm going to go over the key wall. Yeah, Chris is highlighting this. This is exactly what we saw happen with the last warning. So this is, consider this a pre-warning, if you will. Right there, there's Wadesboro, Polkton. Now, Brittany was up here in the Chevy Storm Tracker. She was going in this direction. So to her southeast, right there, this is heading towards, so this is 218, which comes down to Polkton. And anyone who's driven to the beach that was you came from Mint Hill all the way down here to get back on 74. Well, that's heading right in that direction between Polkton and Wadesboro. That's the circulation right there, western Anson County. And Chris, you know, that's exactly what we saw with the last circulation. It did the same thing. The surge of wind out ahead of it pushes out, it forces the air back in, and that kink in the line actually causes rotation to come up. You know, we say the squiggly squall line and kinks in the line, and I know it seems weird, but you got to think about the fluid of dynamics of what's going on here. If you've ever had your hose kind of all wiggled across your yard, and you know have a bend where the water would flow quicker in the kinks, and that's what happens with the airflow. It flows through those narrow gaps quicker, and it spins back in on itself, and it creates rotation. But those spin-ups don't last very long. They just spin up and then they're gone. So the reason we're issuing these heads up is because by the time the tornado warnings come out, in many cases with this type of setup today, the tornado was touched down and it's lifted. Doesn't do you a lot of good with a warning if it's already gone. So we're trying to give you a heads up that this line could produce a tornado with little or no warning. So until this line moves through Anson County, Stanley, Richmond, Eastern Chesterfield, all these areas, we just want you to treat this like it is a tornado warning until the line is passed. Stay inside, stay away from the windows, and when you do hear the warning, get to that center location or the shelter location, but don't venture out right now until this line moves through. So Chris, it looks like a new severe thunderstorm warning was just issued for that.
Yeah, and that would have a tornado tag as well because of exactly what we just saw. Now the main issues with this, of course, wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour are going to happen, and the tornado warning is done, but we're still staying with you because there's a chance that this could be upgraded to a tornado warning. So we're sorry for cutting into your program. If you're following us online, we have been following just these twists and turns all on the system for over an hour now, and it is this reason alone. You can see how it was just a little curvature, and then really started to flourish. And if you look earlier, the reason why we had the most recent tornado warning just west of Ansonville, the same type of situation. See how it leveled out, then it started to kink, it bent in, and then you have its tight circulation on its own, and it only lasts for a couple of minutes. The average time for a spin-up tornado is usually 1 to 2 minutes, but we're seeing the exact same scenario happen again. You can see right back here, south of Marshville, that you have this line. Just like that. Notice what it's done over the last 20 minutes. It's continuing to kink. It's starting to, actually you can see even a better tightening right here west of Wadesboro. And the previous system was moving really fast. So Brad, I'm going to do a similar speed on that, factoring in what we have. And that would be roughly if it followed the same speed as the last system, the last tornado warning.
So we're watching this for a potential another warning, but because the warning has expired to the north, what we're going to do, folks, we're going to go back to regular programming on WCNC over the air, but our stream is going to continue online, on YouTube, on Facebook. If you're watching us on the app, we're going to continue to stream this. We will come back to programming on WCNC over the air if another warning is issued, but you can continue to watch our coverage for these severe thunderstorms, which have produced tornadoes on WCNC.com, our app, YouTube, Facebook, on our website. It's all available there. But for now, for our on-air people, we're going to return to your programming already in progress.
Just some things I know about him.
Like what?
It's not important.
Voorhees is out in the Chevy Storm Tracker. So, Brad, we're seeing history repeat itself, and weather's all about pattern recognition, and that's exactly what we're seeing right around Wadesboro. Wadesboro, you are now the spot that we're looking for our next rotating storm.
Yeah, and so just like we saw with the previous circulation, it started like this, tightened up, and a tornado warning was issued. But you could see right there, just west side of Wadesboro. So Polkton, you're on the west side of this. You're out of the woods, at least from the circulation. But areas heading up towards Pinkston, west of Wadesboro, the Russellville area, White Store Road. That's where 74 and 52 meet up there on the west side. Boy, that's some pretty serious gate-to-gate wind shear there. That's a lot of wind there. So we've got something going on there, Chris. It's probably what's happening is we're probably seeing a big push of wind, a little vortices spin up, they dissipate, but that push of wind is going to cause damage regardless of any tornadoes. I'll get out of the way there because that's just impressive to see that.
Yeah, and it's crazy that we've seen the same thing over and over again. So that's why we've been following this. So watch the previous one that happened in northern Anson County. We just went through this. The same thing has just happened. So that is substantial. Estimating winds at over 80 to 90 miles per hour. So this would be, if this was a tornado that indeed made contact with the ground, EF1 territory at least. So Russellville and Wadesboro, right in between there. Pinkston, following anywhere along Highway 52. You're going to have a chance for this to pass to the northeast. We're in Anson County, by the way, so central Anson County. And how fast this is moving is pretty substantial as well. It entered the county probably about 20 minutes ago, and it's already in Wadesboro. So you can see that it's covered the distance at about 15 miles in 20 minutes. The previous system, we had a movement of about 70 to 75 miles per hour. I think that this one is now approaching at least the 50 mile per hour range off towards the northeast.
Yeah, basically Raleigh's saying it's going about 60, but I agree with you. I think it's probably in that range. Sometimes it picks up speed, sometimes it slows down, but it's been in that 40 to 60, sometimes even 70 miles per hour. The key thing here is it is absolutely flying, Chris. And these warnings would be hard enough in a QLCS or a squiggly squall line, but the fact that they're also moving so quickly, it is really tough to get these warnings out timely. So we've been trying to stay on top of these and say anybody east of this line, you just got to treat it as if there could be a tornado developing on that line at any time, because these severe thunderstorm warnings today aren't your typical severe thunderstorm warnings. All of them have what we call tornado tags in them. Tornado tags mean in the severe thunderstorm warning, they will specifically stay, and we will specifically stay, that even though this is for damaging straight line winds, at any moment a tornado could spin up within this warned area. So it's almost a heads up like, hey, a warning possible right now for a tornado, but we're under a severe thunderstorm warning, just to give you a heads up. So we want you to do the same sheltering and tornado safety tips we do for for tornadoes during a severe thunderstorm warning today, because of the potential the atmosphere has to spin up a tornado. That means get to that interior room. You want to put as many walls between you and the outside. These walls, what they do is they block the flying debris. So if you're in an interior room, if there's flying debris from a tree or another structure, the one wall will stop it, maybe the next one will, or the third one will. And then if you think about the lowest level of your home, you're low to the ground, but there's also floors above your head or ceilings that will block debris as well. And then the last thing we want you to do is protect your head. I know a lot of kids, we didn't grow up with this, but you need to have a helmet on or something to protect your head. We know from all the stats of tracking these tornadoes over the last 15 years that most people that get injured in tornadoes, 80% is from head trauma. They get hit in the head with something. It's flying debris. A lot of movies glamorize the fact that you could get sucked up and blown away, but let's be honest, that's probably not going to happen. What's going to happen is something's going to get picked up and thrown at you, and debris is the biggest concern. So we want to be safe from that flying debris. So for folks in the Charlotte area, you know, you're kind of on the backside. I wouldn't say you're completely clear because it's still a cold front to the west, but the trends of something developing back here, Chris, looks less likely now.
Yeah.
As we get into the afternoon. We were a little worried we might see some supercells, maybe even tiny ones pop upside. But this seems to be hogging all the energy now.
Yeah, you can see that here. I'll stop the clock.
Yeah, like right here, we saw a couple cells try to get going on the backside,
and to no avail. So yeah, this is sucking all the energy as well. And also, look at how big this severe thunderstorm warning is. That shows how fast it is moving out of the area. So Anson, you're almost going to be clear here, probably within the next 30 minutes at this rate.
Yeah, these things are moving 60 miles per hour. So they're moving highway speed. So imagine, you know, how if you didn't have to worry about stop signs or stoplights and you had a road that moved diagonal across the county, it would be moving at 60 miles per hour. You'd be out of the county pretty quickly. You know, 60 miles, you'd cover that in an hour, basically. That's what 60 miles per hour is. So you'd be flying to the northeast, getting up towards Lake Tillery, and then crossing the PD River there. So there's Wadesboro, Mount Gilead. We had some pictures from there of what looked like just a wall of water. It was hard to tell if there was a rotation in there, but the heavy rain is wrapping these up. These are interesting cells today. They were last night. We saw supercells embedded into what we call stratiform rain. That they don't like. What Chris is showing you is the dual pole data. We're trying to see if there's any debris showing up. One of the benefits of dual pole Doppler radar is it will allow us to detect debris in the storm. We can actually confirm a tornado now with radar because the radar will physically pick up stuff, 2x4s, shingles, trees, whatever gets lofted, leaves by the tornado, and that will show up on this product. You got to interpret it a little bit. We're looking for kind of areas where we have a lowering in the CC values surrounded by uniform colors of red. Red is usually rainfall because raindrops are relatively all the same size, so they show up as red. When you get objects of different shapes next to each other, the correlation or the ratio of the sizes gives us a lowering number, and that's what happens on the dual pole product. So, Chris, I don't see a lot of that, but
no, it doesn't. So I'm going back to the velocity here.
Yeah.
So what was really interesting is how quick this activity went. We mentioned spin-up tornado, 1 to 2 minutes. You're going to know that fact by the end of just watching it. Look at how quickly. So I adjusted. We had every 30 minutes. Look at the time. So at this point, you don't see any of the yellow here. This is 142, 143, 144. Notice where it really started to spread out as far as the winds go. Not definitely seeing a tornado at this point, but look at how quick that happened. So at least that rotation was a very short amount of time. Now it's starting to, I think, regenerate a little bit closer to Pinkston. Still a chance for some very gusty winds. This is all within the severe thunderstorm warning here in Anson County. But yeah, it's a lot of quick spin-ups. That's the nature of this beast, and that's why we're still here online letting you know, because likely when a tornado warning is issued, it might be the worst for the first couple of minutes of it.
Yeah, and Chris, some good news. The tornado watch is getting whittled down from the west. They took Union County out of the watch. So this watch was up until 8 p.m. And basically it looks like what the Weather Service is going to do as the line pushes east. It does look like they're going to remove the county. So it was until 8 o'clock, but Union County has been removed.
There it is.
And Lancaster County's been removed. So I would expect Anson, Stanley, Chesterfield, and Richmond County will be removed long before 8 o'clock.
Yeah, so we're not anticipating a second line at this point. I think that this used up all the energy because it's all about energy. Cape, it feeds off of all the moisture from the atmosphere, the heat that you have. The backside of this, I don't think we're going to have enough sunshine to really, or enough time to allow for a secondary line. And also, it failed. Before, you had a few storms that are starting to develop back here. You saw it near Hickory, part of Lincoln County, Lincolnton. They only lasted for about 30 minutes. And as we've been watching this, you can see the intensity of that line. The first warning was issued just south of Chester County. Then we had a second tornado warning that was issued in the northern part of Anson, southeastern Stanley County. And then we had a series of severe thunderstorm warnings. It's pretty much just tracking the leading edge of this line, which is producing, I think, some wind gusts, at least up to about 50 to 60 miles per hour, because some of the winds in general from today have been getting up to 40 miles per hour on their own. So let's see. I want to see what the winds we've clocked for some of our winds so far today.
We did get a damage report coming out of the Lake Norman area. I just saw this come across, and this was from the line of storms as it moved through there. This was at around 11:25 this morning, but it just got it. A tree on a house near Lake Norman on Stunts Road. So that was near Terrell. That's the west side of Lake Norman there. So on 150, when you go from Mooresville to cross over the lake going towards Catawba County, it looks like it was on that side of the lake. So even outside of the thunderstorms that were severe, we had really strong winds today.
Yeah, and we had a down tree on Providence Road this morning. Caught a traffic nightmare, and because it's never good when one of our major Charlotte roads is shut down. It was a very large oak tree, the way it looked like. Those have shallow root systems, and then the enough rain that you have, or just in general, the winds are much stronger up ahead. If you are looking at those really tall trees, winds are much stronger than what's out on the surface. So these are more of the surface winds, seeing anywhere from 26 mile per hour peak winds through today in Rock Hill, over 50 miles per hour in Greensboro, and I guarantee that there's some stronger winds that were in between some of these sites that we had. And as far as the storm potential, the reason why we're still here online with you, we're still tracking that severe thunderstorm warning here in Anson County, but it's racing, not seeing the same signature that we did before, which is good news. I mean, so we're probably at this rate about another hour or so on the eastern side.
Here, because I mean, basically, we could stay, Stanley County, Union County, Lancaster County. I know there's some rain back there, but you're kind of in the clear now. It's really going to be about Anson, Richmond, and Chesterfield counties. Those are the three counties left that we need to worry about. In Montgomery County, for our viewers in Montgomery County, out there as well, heading up towards Troy, you're going to see some pretty closely, and then heading towards Southern Pines, Randolph County as well up there, probably going to see some gusty winds. So if you're in the Southern Pines area, Pinehurst, those areas definitely need to be on guard. Look at those winds. And again, that's probably up around 6,000 or 7,000 feet.
Yeah, this is Raleigh. So, so this is very far away. So oftentimes you have to cut 10, 20, 30 miles per hour off of some of these. But you're still around strong thunderstorm criteria. Usually when it's producing winds at over 40 miles per hour, that's when the National Weather Service will either give a special weather statement or a strong thunderstorm once it gets to around 50 miles per hour. And once you can get up to 58 plus, that's where you have the severe thunderstorm warning. That's exactly what we have right now. Let's see.
And I know Brittany's still out there in the Chevy Storm Tracker. I'm looking at the feed over here. I believe she is in Anson County. I'm trying to look. It looks like she's on 74 based on the pictures I'm seeing.
Yeah, and it's a nightmare with a storm system like this trying to track it just because it is so fast moving. Yeah. But Brittany, definitely not a great drive regardless right behind this system, but things are improving.
Definitely not. I wouldn't say so at all, but I appreciate you guys being on air and on stream. So, of course, while I'm trying to get my data here, you're keeping me updated too. So we are still kind of on that back end of the storms that you guys have been talking about. So we're in Polkton, in the northwestern half there of Anson County, pretty much just paralleling the storm, staying on the close side, but I'd say the safe side of this storm for now. Something that I always think is so important when you're driving, when these high winds are around and when you're seeing strong storms, and even if they're not severe, is kind of where we are right now. You can see we are right behind a semi, an 18-wheeler. especially when the wind is high. These folks have such a hard time sometimes kind of keeping a control of them, and you can kind of, you know, we've seen all those videos that come across, right, during severe weather on social media of 18-wheelers and stuff kind of swerving a little bit. It's not the driver's fault, it's just because the wind is so high, but I think it's a good reminder to kind of keep that safe distance, which my photographer and I are trying to do right now, and remember that, you know, as long as you stay within kind of like that back end of them, you're probably not going to get jerked around quite as much. But I have noticed areas of light to moderate rain here on the west side. We've definitely seen ponding on the roads. There's definitely been enough rain for some street flooding, a little bit of minor flooding there, especially on the edges. But I think the reminder there of that light to moderate rain and how consistent it has been is that hopefully we're starting to get some of that stabilization, because like you guys mentioned earlier, the tornado watch was canceled for Union County. The tornado watch was canceled there for Lancaster County. So it's something we're keeping an eye on, but at least for now, just staying moderate with the rainfall. And I mean, I'm looking at our radar product, you know, that we use here with WCNC, the weather team, and we are on that west side. We're not near that rotation, but getting close to keep an eye on things, but definitely staying safe out there. So I want viewers to know at home that we are not putting ourselves right in the path there of those strong storms. Other than the fact that I just hope everyone's remembering, you know, if you don't have to drive, you shouldn't, because these roads are definitely getting a little bit rough out here, and just remember where your safe place is. I know we talk about that a lot, but stay weather aware, find that interior room if you are in that tornado warning or severe thunderstorm warning, because we always recommend that you treat them both equally as strong. But for now, we are live here in Anson County, just tracking these storms, paralleling them, but staying safe. I'm meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees, live in the Chevy Storm Tracker.
Great job, Brittany, as always, giving us a look from the roads. And I'm going to give you the all clear. If you live west of this line, so I think it's going to be from Monroe, pretty much almost, yeah, I can give that for you in Salisbury as well. Up into Stanley County, that's where we did have that one tornado warning. But Albemarle, I think you're in the clear as well, so I can even move that line a little bit further off towards the east, because this is going to be the main storm system, what's happening over Anson County right now. And you can see where it's been coming from. I'll loop it. It's moving off towards the northeast, and we've seen movement speeds anywhere from 40 to 75 miles per hour, which is insane. Whenever you have a tornado warning, oftentimes those can be a little bit faster than the main thunderstorm, because the tornado itself is driving it forward. And we have seen the classic setup, QLCS. You hear us bring that up all the time. That is a quasi-stationary linear convective system, and it is a quick-moving system in general, what we're seeing right here, but I think that we only have about another hour or so left with this activity. We still have a pair of severe thunderstorm warnings. The first one right here is still affecting parts of Chesterfield County. There's a little bit of activity right back here, still right north of Westville, the far eastern side of Lancaster County. Let's see if we're seeing any sort of rotation with that. We're not. We also don't have as good of a look as we did from our Charlotte velocity scope that really saw a lot of the rotation. That's what actually I want to show you here. Check this out. Here's the reason why we are so watching Anson County. That's still the main deal. So the most recent tornado warning that we had, it was in northern Anson County. Look at that. You can see it flourishing. That little twist that you're seeing in the atmosphere, that is where you have a chance for those little kinks along that line. And it's right around Marshville. But then you notice right when it got about here, so that would be the time of close just after 1 o'clock or about 1:15, because we don't have the minute by minute here. And then we saw the same situation right here around Wadesboro. Likely this might have been just a burst of some pretty hefty winds. I would say at least 60 miles per hour. So that was right in the heart of that severe thunderstorm warning. And then now you can see that a lot of that activity is starting to wind down. We're also getting a little bit further from the radar source. So I think things are starting to improve here. We still have about another 26 minutes of the severe thunderstorm warning that's here in Wadesboro. Also, we're getting to the point that we're a little bit closer to Raleigh. So I'm trying to see if this doesn't look as bad as it once did, I would say, probably about 30 minutes ago. So we are trending in a good direction. As far as the rain, it was a pretty decent rain rates from where Brittany was. It's even more so in Wadesboro. Wadesboro, you can probably barely see in front of you right now. You're looking at rain rates of, right now, let's check this out, about 1.95 inches per hour. Luckily, it's not going to be there for that time frame, but since it is moving its way off towards the northeast, you're going to have a pretty sizable amount of rain that's coming with this. So easily, I think, picking up a quick inch through the central parts of Anson County. Luckily, it's not sticking around any longer than that. Let's see what else we got for our parameters. Again, things are trending in a much better situation. You can see down here to the southwest. Yeah, a lot of all clear. So if you're watching from Monroe, Albemarle, Concord, Charlotte, I think you're in the clear for the day. Things are actually going to get a lot better. You have temperatures in the mid-70s. Yeah, Brad, things are looking up and up, I will say that.
Yeah, Chris, I was just going to tell you, we're getting some delayed reports now. So the first tornado warning of the day when you were cutting in, that was just around 12, right? Right around noon?
Yeah, just afternoon, like 1 minute afternoon.
So we just got a report of a funnel cloud that came in, but this looks like it was more towards 1 o'clock via social media. I'm waiting to see who actually sent it in. It was near the Kershaw area, right on the Kershaw-Lancaster County line. So it was probably that second circulation.
Yeah, let's check that out.
It was taken from the Lake Watery area looking towards Great Falls. So kind of that southern Lancaster, northern Kershaw. Great Falls is right there. So this was around... It's 12:50 something. Yeah, so let's go back. I think.
So I'm gonna move this because right now it's every 30 minutes, so we can actually go minute by minute. Yeah. And let's see. Let's go over the last 2 hours.
So it would have been right there. Yep, it would have been right there. So Lake Watery, you see at the bottom of your screen there. That's the lake there. And so this was from Kershaw looking towards Great Falls and Lake Watery area. So it was right there. We got a report of a funnel cloud with that circulation right there.
Yeah, and this is the circulation that really intensified. This is textbook if you're looking at QLCSs, where you can see that leading edge where it twists back into itself. And then it looked like we might be going to have a secondary tornado warning through Wadesboro and Anson County. But things are just starting to flatten out. I'm still trying to see what the general winds are, so you're kind of going through the process with me. Let me see. So this is out of Columbia. Got a lot of folding going on here. Let's see, Raleigh. And it's tough to estimate some of these winds because it's so far away. But I definitely think you're probably still having some wind gusts up to about 40, 50 miles per hour along this line.
Yeah, Chris, I stepped in front of the map here. Thanks for highlighting those. Yeah, I think at the very least, Chris, you're right. You're probably getting at least 40, 50 mile an hour winds at the surface in some cases. Even though the radar is in Raleigh, the beam here is probably at around 7,000 or 8,000 feet. So that's where we're sampling these winds, but it doesn't take much, especially in a squall line or a line of showers and storms, to mix those winds down to the surface. I will notice, Chris, it's not as squiggly. I know that.
No.
That's our unofficial meteorological term, the squiggly squall line or the QLCS. It's actually a little more linear, which, believe it or not, is more of a damaging straight line wind impact, but it's less of a tornado risk. So the fact that we're seeing those strong winds ahead of it tells me the low-level jet is cranking once again. Just ahead of that. Chris.
Yeah, because look at this. Yeah. This was before. It's all those little twists in there. Yeah, so it's definitely leveling out, and that does line up with now you see more of a line of green along that first green line that is now approaching Richmond County. But really, I think the way this is, I think it's going to move northeast, and then it kind of twists and bends over to Richmond County and Rockingham, but definitely with more of a 40-plus mile per hour tag to it.
Yeah, I know on our chat and on our stream here, we're getting some questions about the Richmond County or Ellerbe, Morven, Hamlet, Rockingham. This is heading your way. Everybody in Richmond County, Montgomery County, and eastern Anson County, you still need to stay in your protected location because of the straight line wind risk. Remember, we have a saying, wind is wind. Your house, the trees, the power lines, it doesn't care what caused that 70 mile an hour wind. It just cares that a 70 mile an hour wind hits it. It's going to break. So the rotational aspect of the wind isn't as big a deal as you might think. 90% of the wind damage we see in the Carolinas is from straight line winds. 70 mile an hour wind is going to cause damage regardless of its twisting or moving straight. The twisting nature actually just makes it a very small area. In fact, the straight line winds, as Chris has been mentioning here, is covering a much bigger area. It's actually a much broader. So it's basically the whole county is being impacted by these damaging straight line winds. And that's really impressive. Even though the radar's way up there, Chris, the fact that we're seeing that is pretty impressive even from this distance.
Yeah, and it's clearly showing the line. It goes all the way from Troy to Wadesboro. By the way, Wadesboro, you're probably noticing that things are starting to calm down a little bit for you. It's still heavy rain, don't get me wrong, but you're not seeing that bright pink shading, and sometimes the brighter colors can represent hail. I don't think that's the case in this situation. We can also look at our cloud top heights. Yeah, that's not going to be tall enough.
Yeah, Chris, I think what we have going, and not to get too geeky on you, I think we have some warm rain processes going on here.
Yeah.
So we're getting big, fat raindrops, and those are showing up as these bright, bright colors. So the radar is picking those up more so than hail. But that, yeah, oftentimes when we would see that, right away we're thinking hail, but there's no cloud to ground lightning, so we're not getting high enough to get to the ice crystallization level. But that's some heavy rain, and I can attest, I drove through this line earlier today. It was blinding. It was causing minor flash flooding, ponding of water on the roads because you had those big raindrops moving through. So some really, really gusty winds and heavy rain, and the combo of those two always brings trees down, Chris. It doesn't take much. You saturate the ground with that rain and then have a 50, 60 mile an hour wind, you're certainly going to see that. But there's that line, and again, Richmond County, eastern Anson County, and really eastern part of Chesterfield County, heading towards the PD region. So all along the PD River down towards Cheraw, Highway 1, those are the areas where we're seeing some rare, very strong winds. So not technically tornado warning criteria, but you want to be in a protected, sheltered location away from the windows for sure. Get in the middle of the house until this system passes. And Chris, we're going to stay on the stream until this storm moves out, which is at 2:30. But you could see how big that is. It looks like a new warning to 2:15. That's to 2:15. That's to 2:30. But really, it's got to clear Richmond County before I feel like we're going to be safe from any damaging winds.
Yeah, and I'm not going to undersell any severe thunderstorm warning, but the one that you were just pointing to, Brad, is a lot more impressive than this last one. But plus, this secondary wave needs to go through the same spot that we have the first one. So it's not going to have as much energy. Still, a lot of rain is falling through here. Let's see if we can see what our rainfall estimates are so far for today. This is a little delayed, so it might not be catching up to Anson County, but we see a decent amount here. Seeing some pockets about 1.8 inches, 2 inches. I think that checks out, especially with some of these rain rates we're seeing because everything's just doing the constant conveyor belt. We also had a poured about over 2 inches in Lancaster. So maybe a little bit of localized flooding, but that's really not the main deal here. I think it's the damaging straight line winds, which is nice that we're not talking about the tornado tag as much. Not saying that east of our area we're not going to see that. You still have the right environment in here. I'm going to bring up the whole reason why we were thinking there was even a chance at tornadoes today. This is our significant tornado parameter. It's one of those things that as soon as you see these numbers move, that's where we watch this. So, and this is what we had. We were seeing values over 1, and notice how really it checks out. Notice from Greensboro, Albemarle, Wadesboro.
It lined up with the line, exactly.
It did line up with the line. So this is also a good lesson, because I know if you're watching right now, you obviously are a weather enthusiast or you're worried what the weather is going to be. Just note that when we show this graphic here for our tornado parameter, whenever there's a number, or especially one that goes to 1 or orange, and we have thunderstorms moving through, this type of scenario can happen. So that's exactly the setup that we had. However, it really is leveling out. And really, I would say that we have probably about another, I don't want to say 45 minutes. I'm really worried about some of the gusty winds that go along with this. We're bringing the velocity scope out of Raleigh, and you can see the heavy winds are still represented in the blue. You can see that top key there. It goes from the green to the light blue. Whenever you get the darker blues, especially embedded in there, that can represent a wet microburst. I'm not seeing that. I think it's just like straight line winds along this line. And you can see this line right here. It's right there. It bows out a little bit and then comes back. That's nothing like what we saw before. Let me see. Estimating some of these winds. Again, this is from Raleigh. That's not an 85 mile per hour wind. What you're seeing, I would say that's closer to about 50, 60 miles per hour. And that's at the upper estimation here across Anson County. Now pushing into Richmond County. That's the big difference. Richmond County, southeastern Anson County, you're seeing a little bit more. Winds are a little bit lighter now for the Wadesboro area, even at about 5, 6, 7,000 feet up in the atmosphere. Right through here. Still not great. I think you're still going to have gusts about 30 to 40 miles per hour behind this line. And also, our tornado watch As we mentioned, it is completely clear out of Union County. Stanley County, even though you haven't been removed, I think that we can physically say that I think that you're pretty much out of the realm of any sort of tornadic activity, but just rain in general. As you can see, that it's mainly just light rain. You're dealing with the general gusts that we've been seeing through the day.
Yeah, and Chris, in Anson County, where that storm is right now, our Brittany Van Voorhees is in the Chevy Storm Tracker, and she's been kind of chasing this line of storms, and we want to take a live view of what she's seeing and get to her right now. And Brittany, what have you been seeing? You're kind of on the back side of that line, right?
Yeah, just on the west side of the line, Brad, kind of in Anson County there, right to the west. So we're kind of just to the north of Wadesboro between Ansonville, but trying to stay away from that main line that still includes, of course, that heaviest pockets of rain and, of course, all of that wind that you guys have been talking about. I do think it's a good reminder here to remind folks that if you don't have to be driving in and out of these storms, that you may want to take a few extra minutes maybe at work before you leave for work, or just use that caution on the roadways. Thankfully, because we are on the west side of this system, and I'm going to switch it to our dash cam so you can see this a little bit better. You can see the menacing clouds there off in the distance, but right where we are, the rain has quickly gone from heavy to light to moderate. That is because these storms are moving so rapidly. They're moving at a clip of about 70 to even 75 miles an hour. That is about 5 times faster than we're even driving here on this little side street here near Ansonville. So just a good reminder there that as these storms move very quickly, while you may think, wow, that is wonderful, they're not going to be here for that long, so I don't have to worry about it for that long. But unfortunately, because they're moving so quickly and the winds have been so high, that's what's allowed for not only these quick pockets there of really, really high wind, but also that potential for those quick spin-up tornadoes that Brad and Chris have been tracking this morning. And of course, early afternoon too, it is we approach close to about 2:15. So something else to note is that as these storms have been rapidly moving through, of course, we've had these little quick spin-ups that we've been keeping a close eye on. A lot of these oftentimes are rain-wrapped, and that can make them extremely difficult to see. We also have about 4 different National Weather Service offices that do cover the overall Charlotte area, the 22 counties that we normally track. So areas such as Ansonville here, Wadesboro, and even over toward a lot of Stanley County, Anson County, and Union County, they're on the outer edges there of those radar bands. So we have some of that range folding. I know Chris mentioned that earlier, that can kind of limit our potential to see some of that rotation, some of that velocity. And so this is why we are keeping such a close eye on it, keeping a close eye on these storms and still tracking them live for you here on the live stream. Now, I'll tell you that it does look like, as I'm looking at our radar product here on my phone, that a lot of Anson County too is kind of getting clear of this warning. It does still right now include parts there of Wadesboro down toward Morven, but a lot of those heavier pockets of rain are now pushing off to the north and east near Ellerby, just to the west there too of Rockingham. We do have some strong cells that are still down toward our south near Pageland, down toward Jefferson, that is South Carolina, just over the border there, and just east of Kershaw. But this is really that main line that's still pushing through. I know Brad and Chris both mentioned this earlier, but there was a lot of model discrepancy on whether or not we would see this second line move through later on today. And right now, it does look like this system we're seeing right now, this line pushing through, is really using up all of that energy. So right now, it does look like things to the west should stabilize a little bit. That's not to say that we won't see a few more spotty showers and thunderstorms by the rest of this afternoon, but it does look like this line that's moving through right now should be the main threat. Now, just reminders here, been keeping some notes here just so I can tell you folks at home. I do think it's important to always remember, we say this a lot, that severe thunderstorm warnings should be treated the same as tornado warnings, especially when they have that tornado tag, that it is possible. A lot of our warnings, especially on those outer edges, are radar indicated, which means, you know, that someone's not on the ground saying, hey, I've seen a tornado, but they're seeing that indication of rotation. So have that safe place. Stay weather aware. Have the WCNC app. Have a NOAA weather radio. Have ways to get those alerts. And if there is a severe thunderstorm warning or tornado warning issued in your area, you want to know where your safe place is. So that's an interior room away from windows, on the lowest level of your home, under a staircase, things of that nature. If you are in public on a day that we have that potential to see strong storms, it's also a good idea to know where you would go in that public place if there were to be a warning issued. If you're in your car and there is a warning issued, if the threat is imminent, National Weather Service does recommend that you stay in your car, pull off, and just try to cover your head to stay safe from debris. But oftentimes you can actually get away from that path and stay safe that way. We have all of these tips always on our WCNC website. We just had our severe weather preparedness week where we went through all of these. So don't want to bore everybody talking about all of those tips again, but just remember, the WCNC weather team, we have these tips for you on our website, on our app, and of course, you'll hear us say it a lot going throughout these events. So for now, live here in the Chevy Storm Tracker, I am in Anson County, but I'm going to switch over to our dash cam again. You can see as those storms are moving rapidly, things are clearing up so quickly. So at this point, I think most areas west there of Wadesboro, west of Ansonville, are pretty much clear of that threat for now. I'm live, of course, in the Chevy Storm Tracker.
Thanks, Brittany. I just want to pass along. I got some, on our Facebook page. We got this streaming as well. You're watching this on YouTube, on our app. I just got a report from Stanley County that they have delayed school pickup in Stanley County until this storm has passed, which is a really good call.
Very good call.
Oftentimes, we've seen this recently. This is a recent trend for schools to either release early or go in late because of severe weather. Honestly, I'm always conflicted on this, Chris, because schools sometimes are the safest building to be in. The worst place to be is on the road in a school bus. So I get what a lot of schools do, but this is actually a good call. Keep the kids in school. Keep them off the roads until this passes, because as you know, the tornado safety, we don't want you anywhere in your car. That's one of the worst places you could be.
Yeah, it's usually whenever they're surveying the damage, especially in the central U.S., Tornado Alley, whenever there's damage to a school, that's usually a really strong tornado. But for Stanley County, speaking of, we're almost in the clear. There's still technically the back edge of this, so we're better safe than sorry. But pretty much most of the energy is now pretty much moving into Richmond County. You still have a chance for what's happening down here to the southwest, but things are rapidly getting better.
Yeah, and and Chris, let's do it again. Let's do the all clear. For the folks watching to the west of this line, we can give you the all clear from severe, basically, behind this line. Chris is going to draw this on here. If you live west of that line that Chris just drew, we were watching and wondering if we were going to see additional storms develop, but anywhere west of here...
Yeah, I can even move it a little bit further over.
It looks like we're clear from the severe. We thought, because the sun came out here and the front was still in the mountains, that there was a small chance we could get, not anything like we're seeing to the east, Chris, but maybe an isolated storm or two that could be severe. That's not happening because the tilt of this and the fact that this actually moved a little bit slower into the afternoon, it's eating up that inflow of warm, humid air. So while it's still warm back here, we don't have quite the same shear. The winds are unidirectional, we call it, and there's drier air trying to filter in from the northwest and the west. So even though the front hasn't cleared, the atmosphere isn't ripe for storms to redevelop. So in the Charlotte area, west, you're clear. You're good to go. But if you're along this line east, and I'm talking primarily eastern Anson County and all of Richmond County, boy, it's coming at you. From Ellerbe to Hamlet to Rockingham, this is the worst of it right now. And we're getting closer to the radar, Chris, but we're still getting winds that are, so, we're looking lower in the atmosphere now, but these winds are still pretty much off the charts here. So let's take about 20, 30 miles per hour off of those. That's probably what you're seeing at the surface. So that's severe winds. And Brittany brought up a really good point, I thought, Chris. Today was a day where you needed to treat the severe thunderstorm warnings almost like tornado warnings because of the potential of those quick spin-ups.
Yeah, and each one of these tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings that we had a possible tornado tag to it. Yeah. And they're moving so quickly, but the biggest thing that Brad and I have been watching is the lack of the twist to this line. Now it's just looking like a general straight line, damaging winds associated with this. So as we're here online, we have another 7 minutes now officially of this severe thunderstorm warning. Still some strong winds. I think it's more of a strong thunderstorm compared to a severe thunderstorm if we really were to factor it, but pretty dang close to that level. Gusts up to about 58 miles per hour. Let's put a track on this. The last estimating we had was about 45 miles per hour off towards the northeast. I still think that the main bulk of the energy is between Rockingham and Ellerbe. So the timing of this system, moving at about 45 miles per hour. We still have areas such as Ellerby. You're pretty much right in the heart of this. I can move this a little bit, adjust the time there. All right, so we have wind blow. I actually haven't heard this place. 239, Foxfire at 244, Eagle Springs at 249, Zion Grove at 255, and then 259, we're up in the Pleasantville, and at that point we're leaving Richmond County. So you're almost in the clear. Anson County, you can see a big improvement for you. Still going to be some pockets of some moderate rain represented by the yellows and some of the orange. But yeah, Union County, you're good to go. No worries. If you're watching from Charlotte, things probably getting a little bit better. Let's see what the Lake Norman camera is looking like. Let me see. Lake Norman off into the distance. You actually see a little spot of blue sky. And I'm happy you don't have that secondary line, by the way, because the way it was looking is that we were going to have this first batch of rain. They could maybe intensify moving off towards the east, and then a secondary line is going to fuel off the thunderstorms. I just don't think it's going to have the possibility of doing that. And then let's check out Monroe. Monroe is on top of the government center. You can still see some of those darker clouds, but things are looking much better. Yeah. Much better here in Monroe. The winds are still whipping. If you look really closely at the bottom, you can see those flags at a half staff, half mast. That is where you have still, I think, some gusts up to about 20, 25, maybe 30 miles per hour behind this system. But, Brad, things are much better than an hour ago.
Yeah, and that all clear line makes sense because they're seeing the Storm Prediction Center has whittled down the what we call the low and medium risk, basically to I-77 East now. So they're even whittling it down pretty quickly as well. So the tornado watch has been canceled for our counties basically south and east of Charlotte, but we're going to see more and more. But you can see how the medium risk is getting pushed off to the east, and that's kind of that's going to lag a little bit, but pretty much anybody west of this line should be free and clear.
Yeah, realistically, I would say it's almost right about there if you were to draw a line. And then the green is just a general thunderstorm chance. Maybe as the front wedges in, but I think the severe window is pretty much closing for us.
Yeah, just looking
at our area.
At the visible satellite image, we're not seeing towering Q or anything back there. Let's bring that up real quick because I think that'll kind of show you what's going on west of this line. The radar is really active, so you can see the clearing, but you're not seeing towering Q back there. You're seeing just some spotty fair weather clouds. So there's nothing back there that would indicate another line is forming. We would see it first on the visible satellite image, starting to see some towering Q, and we're not. And the winds, to me, back there are more, like I said, they're coming from the same direction, so we don't have the wind shear back there either that we had ahead of this. And even though there is still some warm air back there, the dew points aren't nearly as high. The air is slightly drier, which would keep things from really developing anywhere back there. Now, can't rule out a shower, too, because the front could have enough forcing to overcome some of those things. But overall, we're starting to see that thunderstorm fuel out there kind of wane a little bit. That's basically the front. That little skinny line looks like the front.
That's what it's trying to say. It's like, oh, no, watch out. No, but so that the all clear, I think, verifies. You might have, I think, it would just come as like a brief rain shower. Yeah. But this live stream is coming to an end, so thanks a lot for joining us. We're still going to wait out the severe thunderstorm warning because we now have officially 3 minutes. We've come this far. Might as well finish out all the warnings here.
We want to stay on Richmond County because of the wind potential there. It may not have been tornadic like we thought.
But wind is wind is wind. We always say that.
But the winds were really impressive in that area. So
still pretty impressive. It's really Ellerby 220 to 73 that the winds are the strongest. And they'll continue. And you can notice the difference with the green. So it's really just that spot along where the severe thunderstorm warning is, right in here, that you have some of the strongest winds that are associated with this.
Yeah, it really looks like the northern part of the county might have the worst of it right now.
Right in here. Let's bring it up. And again, I'm using Raleigh as well, and you're seeing a little more greens. That's showing a little bit better.
So heads up Pinehurst areas towards Southern Pines. Those areas are the ones that are going to have probably the potential for the winds next.
And Foxfire is going to pick up very soon here.
I know we do have some viewers that pick us up out there in Moore County and Montgomery County. We got a translator in Lylesville that a lot of people can pick us up over the air out in that area. And obviously a lot of folks watching us online as well in that vicinity. So just a heads up, a lot of tall pines out there. This is the type of wind that will bring down those tall pine trees. So just be careful until that line moves through. I'd want you to stay away from the exterior walls and windows. Maybe not get into that shelter location per se, but when you have damaging winds like that, you don't want to be anywhere near a branch, or a tree could whack a window and then get at you. So those folks in Richmond, Moore County, Montgomery County, you're all going to want to stay in the middle of your house and stay inside until that line passes. And boy, that rain is coming down.
Yeah, check out these estimations here. And oftentimes these are misled by hail that could be embedded. There's no hail with this. This is just straight up heavy rain, really big drops. The big ones have really hurt that are maxing out, probably falling at 22 miles per hour just on the rain, besides all the winds. And the winds gusting probably at 40, 50, borderline 60 miles per hour is what we're kind of indicating from this. And we'll do that one more time out of Raleigh. Still showing that bright blue. I bet you we might be able to get one close to 90. But again, it's not actual 90. It's probably cut 30 miles per hour. We've been seeing, this is pretty consistent, that at least 50 mile per hour winds, I think is what you're seeing associated with this.
Yeah, I'm going to check to see. I don't know if they're going to extend this warning east into Moore County. I'd be curious if they did do that, but it doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like you're just going to do special weather statements with that line for right now. They just put one out for that line until 3:15. So that'll be interesting to watch.
And I have to say, this setup would have been a lot worse if it came later in the day.
Oh.
Imagine if all that had just started mid to late afternoon. We could have had a serious situation with the gusty winds, much stronger than this. Tornado potential. I think we would have had a lot more twists. So it was a good scenario that it started in the morning and it started to intensify during the early afternoon compared to just starting now.
Yeah, that was the big caveat with this setup today, was all about timing. The early morning timing worked in our favor. If this thing delayed 3 or 4 hours, boy, we'd have a completely different story. And those are the small changes. I always tell people, small changes multiplied by those kind of impacts can make big differences. So you got to be careful. The front, we knew it was going to come in today. We were pretty confident the risk would be somewhat low, but those areas east of Charlotte, that was kind of the big question mark, because we knew there would be some heating of the day. And we'll see what gets confirmed here, but the signatures on the radar were pretty pronounced. I would not be surprised if we had a brief touchdown, but based on what we've seen so far, it looks like there's been a lot of funnel clouds, Chris.
A lot of funnel clouds.
A lot of funnel cloud reports, a lot of what we call scary-looking clouds. SLCs, I call them. Those can be really, people think those are tornadoes, but the movement of the clouds today was just so fast, it made everything look like there was something going on there. But the winds in general, I think that's going to be the calling card from the system. We had wind damage in Charlotte, Lake Norman, the Dallas area. We're seeing other damage, and that was from straight line winds. It was not from tornadoes. And I will preach this all the time. Wind is wind is wind.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's a tornado or straight line winds. The winds are dangerous, even if they're not rotational. And 90% of our wind damage is straight line winds around here.
Straight line winds, and it's the wind gusts that can, even up to 35 miles per hour with the saturated soil, can uproot the large trees that we have here around Charlotte. So that's why we always have to take these ones seriously. But luckily, that severe thunderstorm warning is now kaput. It's done. Things are improving for the afternoon. Of course, this guy has a show to put together.
Yes.
He'll be back at 4 o'clock, and maybe I should go home.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm actually starting my work day. You're trying to wind yours down.
Glad we were able to meet in the middle.
Yeah, Brittany is out there. I can see her live stream over here on the side here. So she's out there looking for damage. And so coming up at 4 o'clock, we'll have complete coverage on this, all the damage reports, kind of a recap of what's going on, what happened today. We'll see confirmation. I don't know what survey crews will go out. We'll find out if the Weather Service is going to survey any of the damage. I'd be suspicious about southern Lancaster, Chester County. There might be a possible survey down there just based on some damage reports and what we saw on the radar. But we'll check it out and have an update coming up at 4 o'clock. Chris is going to head home, and then we'll start focusing on the next part of our weather forecast, which is going to be some cooler and drier weather for the weekend.
Hey, but that's much less threatening.
Yes. So 2 weeks in a row, the middle of the week has been active. And just so you guys know, we're just now going into April, and April and May are the peak of our severe weather season. So this is not something that we take lightly. We take it very seriously here at WCNC, and we're getting to the heart of the season. So if you didn't see severe weather today, be thankful. If you did, Hope you're okay, everything's all right. But coming up in the next 2 months, we're probably going to see more events like this, Chris.
And if you're following with us, how you saw the twist along the line, that's what we do around here.
Yep.
That is the most classic way to get a tornado. We don't usually have those long track tornadoes. Those come from supercells. So hopefully you learned something as well, maybe a little bit more weather-wise. That's why we're always here, trying to raise your weather IQ at all hours of the day. But I'm happy that at least this chapter is closing for your Thursday.
All right, so we'll head to James. He can sign us off on the live stream. Remember, tune in at 4 o'clock. You can watch that online as well. You don't have to watch us on TV. We will stream on the app as well as our Facebook page, or excuse me, not our Facebook page, but our website, WCNC.com, or you can watch us on Roku or Amazon. So you don't always have to be in front of the TV anymore to watch.
Everywhere you go.
Yeah, see you at 4 o'clock, everybody.